it's playing against her so badly now because of, and this is why big tech wants a stranglehold, because people are aware of it. Even people who may be undecided say, okay, come on now, you do have to actually start speaking to people. So she's actually lost momentum, not gained it with a convention, which is kind of a miracle.
And it all started with that economic speech. I heard you guys talking about it. I mean, you're talking about capital gains tax going to nearly 45%, the unrealized capital gains tax, which is absolutely insane, the price controls, even the Washington Post came out. I think that's where the momentum really started to fade.
Here to talk about that and more is a friend of the show. And, well, let's just bring him on, Clay Travis. Host of the Clay and Buck show. You know, they're both good, but Clay is the...
I think Clay's better.
Yeah, Clay's the better.
Clay's better.
Buck's good. Clay is better. Mr. Clay Travis, have you been watching this evening?
I have. And I think that's the worst speech by a major political candidate that I've ever seen. I mean, 15 minutes, roaring through, says nothing, sounds, even if you were listening to your PE teacher try to give you an inspirational speech, you would be like, yeah, that wasn't the best you could do. The pep talk on the sports football analogies, they fell flat. You guys, I thought it all, like, I jotted down a ton of stuff as you guys did too, but you were just talking about the China thing. He's been to China 30 times is the report that I saw.
Yes.
30 times. How many times do you think the average school teacher in America has left the country in their entire life? To say nothing of to go to one country 30 times. I mean, that's super weird, right?
I mean, think about it. If you go to a restaurant 30 times, you're a regular. They give you a menu item named after you.
That's right. Like, I'm thinking about that now. I take my 16-year-old and my 13-year-old when their sports are done for the day. We go to a restaurant near their school, and people are starting to recognize us there. We haven't been to that anywhere near 30 times.
No, that would be excessive.
People are like, oh, it's good to see you again. I mean, that's crazy. The other thing, I'm curious what you guys think about this. They're making a big deal about, Tim Walz, like he connects so well with people in the middle part of the country. I'm talking to you right now from Nashville, Tennessee. Do you know how often I take note if somebody's walking around in a camo hat? Never. Do you know how often I take note if somebody's dressed and they look like they're gonna go hunting? Never. They talk like having someone dressed in camo or Carhartt or something, people are going to see it and say, oh my goodness, this person is so much like us.
Right.
No, this guy, they want to talk about him being a coach. This is important to me. He canceled the 2020 high school football season in his state because he said it wasn't safe to play football. Then when they came back and started allowing sports, he made everybody wear masks on the basketball court. That is not a guy that plays well where I am in Red State.
I remember that.
You mean the players, Clay, had to wear masks?
Yes.
I remember
on
seeing
the basketball court.
Yes.
They had to wear masks on the basketball court. I mean, this is not a guy.
He shoots for three, he faints. His O2 levels aren't doing that well.
Not to mention, he shot paintballs at people who dare come outside.
There's a lot of bad things, but on the sports front, he doesn't know that when you're on offense, you already have the ball. I'm sure you picked up on that too. But also that you might need to breathe when running up and down the court in a cardio-heavy sport.
These are but minor details.
So from shooting paintballs?
Also, his metaphor, I guess he's trying, like, we're got the ball and we're down a field goal. And, like, does that mean Kamala Harris is the quarterback? Because if so, everybody's fucked. She's not going anywhere. And I don't mean fucked in a good way.
Well, she's been under center before, let's be honest.
Kamala is Joe Montana. Kamala is Patrick Mahomes. Kamala is Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. I ain't rolling with that metaphor any further.
No, it falls a little bit.
I don't understand the sports references, but I know that she slept her way to the top with a lot of guys.
Well, that's very true.
I don't know if it helps if you bang the offensive line.
Yeah,
but if so,
everybody's fucked on the offensive line.
I would, I'd bet on Kamala if it helps.
Oh, look, I mean, side chicks should be ecstatic to go into the voting booth because she's the most successful side chick in the history of modern America. So I guess that if they do a Mount Rushmore of side chicks, Kamala definitely has to be on there.
That's exactly right. You can tell your daughter, hey, if you play your cards right, you too can be a side chick whore.
When you're 29, if you sleep with a 60-year-old married man, there's no stopping you.
No. The sky's the limit.
By the way, to your point on basketball, I think there were 14 kids that passed out from practicing in Minnesota. So maybe masks on the basketball court was not the best
it's the stupidest idea of all time that you would ever have allowed it. But by the way, if you're not a sports person, you mentioned the paintball shooting at people on the porches. Also, how about just you have a snitch line?
Yes.
To turn people in, you cancel Thanksgiving, and you talk about what a great neighbor you are. This guy is full of shit on a level that is rarely seen in the history of modern politics.
Yeah, he was saying in Minnesota, we say, mind your business, and he's got a snitch line.
Yeah,
a snitch line. And by the way, not a snitch line for like somebody who's dealing cocaine out of their house. A snitch line for somebody who's eating turkey with their grandma.
That's not going to. That snitch line's not going to help him with the black vote. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you what. I saw that, and I know it's wrong of me. It's not Christian. I wanted to send him all of the elements to make a deep fried turkey, but send him like the wrong instructions. That's how I felt.
Tell him to cook the center at 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Exactly.
No. Heat the oil first, then throw the entire frozen
throw it in
turkey
frozen
all at once.
This deep fried turkey will blow you away.
Yeah.
I think this is the worst speech. I saw you were playing like CNN and Van Jones was like, I think it was Van Jones.
It was.
I saw this and
That's right, black guy.
It's amazing. Like they didn't pick Josh Shapiro, who is in the only state that may well matter here, Pennsylvania, because he's Jewish, because there's too many anti-Semites inside the Democrat Party right now. And instead they picked a dumb PE teacher who couldn't talk for more than 16 minutes in a state that they already knew they were going to win. Kamala is probably not very bright in the grand scheme of things, but this is an imbecilic decision even for Kamala. At least she was banging a guy who could give her a job in San Francisco. She picked a guy who's going to cost her a job in Minnesota.
That's true. How sad would it be if she banged Tim Walz and figured out after that she was already going to win Minnesota? She's like, you mean I was already ahead?
I mean, if you're picking a state, she could have picked the astronaut Mark Kelly down in Arizona. I think that could have helped. I mean, there were a lot of people on the board. Gretchen Whitmer, even though I think she's a witch. Cruella DeVille. I mean, she could have helped in Michigan. She went with a guy in a state she was already going to win who was unlikable and not particularly smart. Instead of the guy in Pennsylvania who would have delivered the state that basically makes it impossible if you win that state for Trump to get to 270. So I'm stunned by how bad he was, honestly. I thought he would be far better. And anybody who's telling you, oh, that was an inspiring speech is an imbecile. I mean, especially compared to the other people, frankly, that we saw tonight, Josh Shapiro, among others.
Well, yeah, he does. We were talking about how he talks like Jewish Barack Obama, so he's obviously been coached. But I will say this, even though Josh Shapiro was a better speaker, we have it's a 2-night event, the live fact-checking. There was nothing to fact-check.
They're smart, I think, honestly.
There's nothing. They've proposed nothing as far as policies.
Rally. It's all it was.
It's all energy and positive. This is still a honeymoon. Everybody's complicating everything. This is still a honeymoon. I don't believe in those polls anyways, but if they are real, it's just it's a little bump from this.
Such a honeymoon.
And you guys said, what was the thing you referenced earlier? The poly market.
I know, you're a betting man.
Yeah.
You see the poly market flip in the last week?
Yeah, Trump's now up 7, or he was, like right when I sat down to talk to you guys, 53-46. I jotted down 7%. He was down 10, so this is a 17-point swing. I actually think this RFK Jr. story, if it's true, going to endorse Trump, I think it's going to steal all of the momentum away from the Democrats this week. I think honestly it's brilliant. I don't know how long they've had it planned. But I like looking at gambling markets because I'd rather see where people are putting their money as opposed to what people are saying, because people lie on television, as you guys know, all the time. And so show me where the money's going. And the money's pouring in on Trump over the last basically 4 or 5 days.
And by the way, that's unheard of, because you always get a convention bounce.
Correct.
We talked about that earlier. The last person who didn't get a bounce was John Kerry, and he's basically the Democrats' Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
No one liked him.
Yeah.
So
they cancel out.
Yeah. They're actually, but he didn't lose momentum. This convention has actually lost them momentum. Think about that, because everyone thought, okay, she'll announce her VP pick. You'll have the convention. There'll be some momentum. The honeymoon phase will and then she'll have to answer. She'll have to answer for her policies. The fact that she hasn't answered at all, and people are realizing it, that she hasn't given a press conference, that she hasn't given an actual sit-down interview, it's playing against her so badly now because of, and this is why big tech wants a stranglehold, because people are aware of it. Even people who may be undecided say, okay, come on now, you do have to actually start speaking to people. So she's actually lost momentum, not gained it with a convention, which is kind of a miracle.
And it all started with that economic speech. I heard you guys talking about it. I mean, you're talking about capital gains tax going to nearly 45%, the unrealized capital gains tax, which is absolutely insane, the price controls. Even the Washington Post came out. I think that's where the momentum really started to fade. And look, I think what we're going to find out, I think I told you guys this a couple of weeks ago. To me, I come back, and this is the football guy in me. I know we just heard from Tim Walz, assistant football coach that they're trying to turn into Bill Belichick or Nick Saban. Look, people in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, the Big Ten states in general, they're not voting for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. I'm talking about high school graduates, blue-collar workers. Ultimately, they're going to look at this and say no. One of my favorite stats, Pennsylvania is the third most rural state in the United States. Most people don't think about it. There's Philly, there's Pittsburgh, and then there's a lot of Alabama in Pennsylvania. I think that Trump's going to win Pennsylvania. I think he's going to win Georgia. I think he's going to win North Carolina. That's all he needs to do to be to win in 2024, irrespective of what happens in Nevada, what happens in Arizona. The other thing I'll say is this is strange, the timing to me. I mean, we're talking to you guys. It's late at night. It's midnight on the East Coast now. Why in the world, if you're trying to appeal to Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, among others, do you not have your guys coming out to speak, your primo speakers, until after 11 on the East Coast? Most people with kids, most people with real jobs, they've gone to bed, and they're not paying attention. You're not really persuading anybody. It's very strange to me.
This is a real job, but your point remains.
Yeah. And by the way, hey, thanks for staying up late with us here. But just a new thing from Newsweek, obviously a left-leaning. Kamala Harris not leading in a single battleground state in a new poll just out. That's huge because the polling it's been a little bit kind of hit and miss for Republicans.
Well, what are you doing polling people? Mind your own damn business.
Apparently we need to mind our own damn business and not take any polls. But that's pretty bad, obviously. But we're looking at Polymarket, and that's an interesting thing. We'll see how the polls go. You had some interesting words about Pete Buttigieg. What were you
Somebody
saying?
needs to talk to this dude. Like, I don't think he's got a lot of skills for other jobs. I know he's moved to Michigan. He's not the mayor of South Bend, Indiana anymore. Somebody just needs to, I'll do it. I'll go out to dinner with him if he wants me to, and just stick it right in his face and tell him to take a break from chest feeding. I'll tell him, I'll say, Mayor Pete, you have no chance to be elected as a Democrat in either of our lives. We're around the same age. Black guys are not voting for a gay white guy. And I love how they won't admit it on television. Like, they're like, man, he does really well in Iowa. He does really well in New Hampshire. But then he doesn't really connect that well with people in the South. This is where I live, all right? I know Southerners well. Black guys aren't voting for a gay white dude. And nobody will say it on television. They always talk around it. Like, he just doesn't have the same appeal when he gets into the southern states and the Democrat electorate. I'm like, yeah, black guys aren't voting for him. They're not showing up. It's never going to happen for him. Like, he's not going to make it happen.
Give it up.
Maybe, I actually think he would have a better chance of winning as a Republican. Maybe 20 years from now he flips and runs as a Republican because I think Republicans would actually be more likely to vote for a gay white guy, ironically enough, than the Democrats would. But nobody will tell him. I'll tell him, hey, bud, you might as well go ahead and stick a fork in the presidential dream.
You're absolutely right. Black guys won't vote for him because he's gay, and Latinos won't vote for him because of 3 months paternity leave. If they took paternity leave every time they had a kid, they'd never work. Clay, if you can hold with us, J.D. Vance is talking on CNN. You should be able to hear our feed. Let's hear what he has to say here.
Advancing policies. They're going to lower the cost of housing, lower the cost of food, secure the southern border, and raise wages for the middle class. And Kamala Harris really can't run on accomplishing that because her policies have in fact caused a lot of the problems and a lot of the suffering that we see in our country. So what you see from the Democrats is instead this argument that if you want to vote for Donald Trump because you want to change the direction of this country, you're somehow a bad person. And I really think that dark message really doesn't gel at all with the idea that somehow the Democrats are the joyful party. There's a lot of attacks on Donald Trump, a lot of criticisms of what he's done and what he's said, not a whole lot of positive vision for how Kamala Harris is going to fix the problems that plague the country.
There's also been some criticisms of you, Transportation Secretary
thanks,
Pete
Jake.
Buttigieg this evening spoke tonight. He took aim at one of your past comments from 2021 that Americans that don't have children have, quote, no physical commitment to the future of this country, unquote. I want you to take a listen and get your reaction.
I know what I said.
He's defended this a million times.
Senator, when I deployed to Afghanistan, I didn't have kids then. Many of the men and women who went outside the wire with me didn't have kids either. But let me tell you, our commitment to the future of this country was pretty damn physical.
Watch J.D. Vance. I guarantee he's going to knock this out of the park.
Of course.
What's your response?
Jake.
Well, my response, Jake, is that Pete Buttigieg has taken a sarcastic remark that I made 3 years ago and turned it into something to distract from the fact that his leadership has seen higher transportation costs, higher fuel costs, and higher food prices for American citizens all over our country. These guys act so focused on a sarcastic quip that I made that they ignore the fact that under Kamala Harris's leadership, Americans can't afford the basic necessities of a good life in this country. And so I appreciate that Pete Buttigieg pretends to be offended by what I said. I think Pete should be offended by the fact that under his leadership as Secretary of Transportation, the government took in $8 billion to build 7 electric vehicle charging facilities at a time when Americans are paying 45% more for the gas that transports them to work. That's what we should be focused on, and that's what we should be talking about. And it illustrates, Jake, my entire criticism of the Democratic approach here is
I can't wait to see what Jake Tapper says after he was just bent over and spread.
And the real record is that Kamala Harris has made this country poorer. Donald Trump made the middle class richer, and he caused a lot of peace and prosperity to break out in this country and all over the world. It's a very simple contrast, and I wish the Democrats would focus on the issues.
That was a.
There was another comment about you I wanted to get a reaction to this evening. We heard
that was a 465-foot home run. Velocity off the bat, 113.
Yeah.
Edit.
Over the Green Monster.
Yes. That was a fastball down the middle. He got all of it.
And by the way, J.D. Vance, do you understand why there was
this guy looks like he just saw his shadow. It's going to be 6 more weeks of winter.
For running mate on the GOP ticket?
I like them better with the bandana.
Kill your predecessor.
What?
Do you have any reservations at all taking the ticket, taking the opportunity to serve as a vice presidential nominee, given what happened to Vice President Pence on January 6th?
That's not the question.
No, not at all, Jake. And look, I can't help but laugh at what Jamie Raskin said. These are people who somehow always make themselves the victims. Jamie Raskin should be much more worried about the fact that there are a lot of Americans that can't afford to buy groceries, that can't afford to put their children in a nice home.
By the way, fact check, bring up the noose that they had on January 6th of Mike Pence. You couldn't even hang him. You couldn't hang the leader of the Lollipop Guild.
In American politics in 2024 who's whining about what happened to them instead of using their leadership and using their influence to make the lives of American citizens better. I have no reservations about taking this job because I know
either goodbye
or Donald J.
someone
Trump
else said
president
this.
of the United States, he's going to deliver rising wages, lower prices, and a secure border. That is all worth it for me, whatever the media or Jamie Raskin says about me.
I want to play some of what Governor Walz said.
Okay. All right. Okay, Clay, I know it's late for you, so there you go. There's the news they were going to hang Mike Pence with. It has a 5'2" Abercrombie model standing right behind it. Clay, here's my takeaway from this. They hide Kamala Harris from the media because they are terrified of what will happen. And they try to hide J.D. Vance from the American public because they are terrified of what will happen. Your ball, to use a Tim Walz analogy.
Look, J.D. Vance is a political thoroughbred. You guys played the answers. I mean, he's killing Jake Tapper on his own show right now on CNN. But I also think this is emblematic of what's going on larger scale. I'm sure you guys saw the Theo Von interview that Trump did, where he's talking about alcoholism and how do you deal with it. Trump is talking to everybody on every level. YouTube bloggers, whether it's like who's the Aiden Ross guy that my kids like. I mean, it really is wild how he'll go answer questions from anyone, anywhere. J.D. Vance is going into the Lions Den on CNN right now, taking questions on a regular basis. To you guys' point, we know exactly where they stand on a policy perspective. You may not agree with it, but you have a definite idea of what they would do if they came into office. All Kamala Harris has done so far is say that everything that she previously endorsed, she no longer is in favor of. And they just kind of try to get by on bland generalities, with the exception of that economic speech she gave last week, which blew up in her face to such a disaster. I mean, the part where that I couldn't believe some of the stuff they said when she was saying, hey, the cost of meat and bread is up 50% since COVID. It's like you're making an advertisement for Trump. People can't afford down payments on homes. I mean, to me, again, economy, border, crime. Trump hits those and keeps hammering. J.D. Vance does. He's going to win, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
Well, it's very interesting that you bring up, her kind of pseudo, speech on the economy. I've always had people say this, and these are often people who don't enter the arena, where they'll say, you know what, the fear of the unknown is way worse, get it over with. I used to have people say that. And then I broke my femur and separated my kneecap. And I thought, oh, this is what I was afraid of. It's way worse. The known is way worse than the unknown. And I think Kamala Harris, they're going, maybe get it over with. The fear of this happening, the fear of this public speaking, the fear of proposing policy. Once you get it, rip off the Band-Aid. It's the fear of the unknown that's worse. She did it and she went, oh, no. That's way worse. That hurt way worse than saying nothing.
Yeah, and look, we also know that the media is rigged in her favor. So the fact that she can only do one sit-down interview in August, the fact that she can't do a press conference, that she can't just stand there and take questions left and right, I think it's resonating with people that you can't run an entire campaign on vibes. And ultimately, I think what's going to happen down the line is people are going to start to realize what I just told you. Wait a minute, this is a Midwest election. And the reason Joe Biden was able to make the Midwest competitive was because he's an old, unthreatening white guy to a lot of blue-collar white voters. That worked. We know it's BS. We know the idea that Scranton Joe, a union guy like Grandpa Joe, sitting around the kitchen table, we know how untrue that actually is. But it worked with low-information voters when they were able to hide him in the basement. I don't think Kamala works that same way. I just don't think she has the legacy. I don't think she has the political skill. I don't think she makes people think about their grandpa or their grandma in an unthreatening way, like worked in some capacity in the Midwest for Biden. And that's where this race is going to be.
Unless she's performing fellatio on them. Clay, where's the best place for people to find you? And we'll have to get you out in studio here sometime soon, but let people know.
I thought you were going to say, where's the best place for fellatio? I've been married 20 years. I got no idea.
In that case, it's nowhere.
Amen. You can find me on Twitter at Clay Travis. You can also find me every day with Buck Sexton, 12 to 3 Eastern. I think we're on 500 stations. And by the way, if you are a sports fan and you think the world has gone insane, check out Outkick. I think you'll be entertained. Outkick.com is the site, and we still have a lot of fun there, even though the world's crazy.
Yes, and to be fair, again, Clay and Buck, both good. Clay's probably the better. But Buck is still good. Still good.
He has a sweet Tecmo poster.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Exactly. So, Clay Travis, thank you so much for taking the time, brother. We appreciate it. Go get some sleep.
Y'all keep up the good work. Have fun tomorrow. Hopefully you get some fact checks to actually do fact checks on.
I doubt it. Clay Travis, everybody. Hey, if you like this video, you want to see more, you can hit the notification bell to know when more videos are up, or just watch weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. We live stream. It's actually live, where we interact with you. And we are so happy to be here with you, because it's a known fact that content creators online are the happiest among us.